next event is going to be Noir at the Just Not Invited to My Trivia Night anymore. Our next reader is Phillip Thompson. Phillip Thompson grew up in East Mississippi, where most of his fiction is set. He is a combat veteran, journalist, and a gun owner, among other things. Thompson is the author of 3 novels, Enemy Within, A Simple Murder, and Deep Blood. The short fiction has appeared in O Dark 30, the literary journal of the Veterans Writing Project, Thrills, Kills, and Chaos, Out of the Gutter Online, The Seamus Sambo 2, and The Dead Mule School of Southern Literature. He's also authored the nonfiction account of his Gulf War experience, Into the Storm, a U.S. Marine in the Persian Gulf War, and he lives in Virginia. Phillip Thompson. Hi, y'all. All right. Make sure you tip the bartenders. I'm going to read just a little bit out of my latest novel. It's called Deep Blood. I'm going to be giving one of these away now, so you know, give one of them away. The book's about a sheriff down in the South who thinks he's about redemption, but he's really more about revenge. And this is a chapter that goes all the way back to when he was a little boy, and he spent a summer day with his father. That's the setup. And I hope I can turn the page one-handed on the microphone. Sam was about 7 at the time his daddy took him fishing out at McHugh. He thought it was strange because Daddy hardly ever took him anywhere, except to beer joints, where Sam would wait in the car until his daddy came out, laughing and half drunk, to take him home. Sometimes he would sit on his hands for a while to see what patterns the grooves of the vinyl seat would make on his palms. Or he'd root around the glove compartment through the scraps of paper and crushed red cigarette packs looking for circs. Once he tried to see how many letters of the alphabet he could make by twisting a paperclip he found on the floorboard in the back seat. And once, and he never told his mama or his daddy about this, he snuck out of the old Impala and down the dark, smelly Columbus Street called Catfish Alley to listen to the old black men slide their slip fingers up and down the necks of guitars a decade older than he was. His daddy would have killed him for slipping off to listen to their music, but Sam liked it anyway. He liked the noise and the movement of people, the way he liked going to the county fair. He ran down the cracked sidewalk past the black-faced, empty-eyed facades and smelled the deep-fried channel cats sizzling in the big steel kettles of the cafes up and down the narrow street, and the malt liquor and the old men themselves in their black suits that fit them like the skin on the catfish, their hair the color of cigarette smoke. Sam set a coke crate on his hand and hunched down, unaware that he was the only white face on the dull yellow streetlight, and unaware that he was accepted, not because he was white and therefore privileged, but because he was a boy who wanted to listen to Mississippi come out of the calluses on these old men's fingers. These old men who nodded at him as they played and said to themselves, "God damn the color of any boy like that." He got lucky that night. He sat just outside the ordered light where he could look back over his shoulder and see the top of his father's shaggy black hair at the bar of the white folks' place on Main Street, the last drop. As soon as his daddy stood up to pay his bill, he hightailed it back to the car, slid into the front seat, and was fiddling with the radio when his dad flopped behind the wheel, wheezing and fumbling with the cigarette lighter. He loved those late nights, especially in the summer when his daddy would roll down the windows of the big white Impala for the drive through the darkened town and the hours past his bedtime, and cruise through the butterscotch street lamp light and the blinking crimson traffic lights out past the city limits at Luxpalala Creek and into the truly dark streets with no sidewalks where the only light came from the big living rooms of the small Jim Walter homes. His mama didn't like it much when he went out with his daddy. He'd heard them argue about it enough times. One night he lay in his room, black before the milky streaks of moonlight leaking in through the thin curtains as his parents fought. He heard his mama yell from the kitchen and slipped out of the bed and peeked around the jamb on his bedroom door. Mama was still in her Winn-Dixie cashier's gray uniform, her name, Ellen, stitched in red over her left breast. He could barely see his daddy, but he could hear him just fine. Daddy was sitting on the couch, dragging on a Pall Mall and trying to watch a Cardinals game, drunk as a skunk on Jack's beer after an evening at the last drop. Mama had met him in the carport, her stringy arms folded across her chest. "Leave me the fuck alone," Daddy had said as soon as he saw her. "I will not." "Suit your damn self then," Daddy said as he dove onto the couch in the small living room. "For the love of God, Winston, it's bad enough when you go off and get drunk enough to kill yourself driving, but you could have killed Sam too," she said to the back of his head. Daddy smoked a cigarette and propped his feet up on the footstool. He stared at the black and white television as the Cardinals batter came to the plate. "Yep, He said, but I didn't, now did I? Mama flipped him the finger and kicked off her shoes. She slumped down the hall to the bedroom. A cloud of blue smoke rose in front of the couch, drifting up toward the ceiling like a lazy summer cloud. Sam ducked behind the door as his mother passed and climbed back into bed, confused by the happiness he felt when he was with his father and his mother's anger. The fishing day came in the middle of summer, and Sam was sleeping late that morning. Daddy stuck his head in the door and yelled for him to get up, get moving. He was burning daylight. He opened one eye and shook the sheets off his head. He could hear his daddy moving around in the kitchen. "Come on, son, we're going fishing," Daddy hollered. He flipped the covers off himself and grinned back at his daddy, who stood in the door in a pair of jeans and a faded blue shirt before clomping down the hall in the boots Sam knew had been on his feet since he'd gone off to the graveyard shift at the railroad the night before. Sam loved fishing, and he loved the idea of going somewhere with his father in the daytime. He patted down the hall in his underwear and pulled a box of his favorite chocolate cereal from the cabinet. Mom was already at work, so he got a bowl of milk and made his breakfast while Daddy rummaged through the house, a cup of black coffee in one hand, a lit cigarette in the other. "Where are we going to go fishing, Daddy?" "Out to your Aunt Mabel's," he said on his way through the kitchen and out the front door that led to the carport. Smoke trailed him like a freighter, his unbuttoned shirt the color of the afternoon sea. "Over in McHugh." He ate and thought about that. Aunt Mabel lived out near the crossroads over in McHugh, where 45 and 82 intersected, about halfway between Columbus and Starkville, where a lot of his kinfolk lived. Aunt Mabel had a small house out in the middle of nowhere at the end of the gravel road off of what the grown-ups called Old 82. Behind the house was a big pond full of fish. At least that's what Daddy always said whenever they visited. He hurried through his breakfast, splashing tiny globes of milk into the dark wood kitchen table. Daddy had taken him fishing a few times over at Lake Lowndes out near the Alabama state line. He never caught anything. He just kept losing his minnows when he flung the line off the pier into the still green water. But he liked it. He wished he had a tackle box like those guys on the TV fishing show, but Daddy always said he couldn't afford one. He finished up the cereal as he heard the squeal of the styrofoam cooler being wedged into the back seat of the car. He stuck the bowl in the sink and ran down the hall to get dressed, which took about 10 seconds. He put on a pair of cut-off blue jeans and his favorite tank top, the red one Aunt Paula had given him, and grabbed his tennis shoes. There were holes in them where the little toes on both feet poked through, but that was okay. He was probably going to get a new pair in a couple of months when school started. He could go barefooted until then like every other summer. He ran the car, still smiling, as Daddy slammed the trunk of the car shut. "You got my pole, Daddy?" "Yup, jump in, let's go." Sam climbed into the passenger side of the big car and rolled down the window. He poked his elbow out the side like he had seen all the men do. He could hardly see over the top of the table. Winston lit a Pall Mall and put the car in gear. They had just crossed the rickety, rusty Tombigbee River Bridge and passed Bob's Drive-In restaurant when Daddy flipped a cigarette butt out the window into the heat and reached under the seat. Sam didn't say anything, but he knew what the day was going to be like. Daddy pulled a big bottle of Jim Beam out of a crumpled paper sack, eased the bottle back to check the level, and swiveled off the top. Sam watched him take 3 or 4 big gulps of the whiskey, watched his Adam's apple bob through the tight brown neck skin, in time with the sound coming from somewhere within his body. He heard the brown paper creakle when Daddy lowered the bottle and made a face that made Sam think what was in that bottle didn't taste very good. He knew it did. He'd sneaked out to the carport one night a few weeks earlier when he was supposed to be catching lightning bugs and pulled the bottle out. He didn't know what it was, but he didn't like it. Because even though Daddy seemed to like it an awful lot, it made him a really mean person. He knew he shouldn't do it, but he just had to know. He'd seen Daddy drink down nearly half a bottle of liquor in one time on the side of a gravel road one afternoon near RT. It didn't make a face like he was going to throw up. So he thought it couldn't taste good, could it? But he had to know. He barely got his tongue wet with the bourbon, but it was enough to make him think he'd just swallowed fire. The sour mash whiskey burned his throat all the way down to his belly, and he couldn't breathe. He started coughing and hacking and thought for sure he was about to get caught. But he didn't, so he screwed the cap back on and replaced the bottle. Sam settled into his seat and watched the green prairie roll by. Herefords, grays, and tin roof barns gleamed from the low hilltops. It could still be a good fishing day. Daddy spun the radio dial looking for a country station on the AM radio. He found one playing Charlie Rich and started singing along. Sam just stared out the window. He didn't like country music very much. People always sounded like they was in pain. Daddy took a couple more drinks from the bottle as he steered down the straight blacktop of Highway 82 between Columbus and Starkville. Off to the left, bulldozers and graders were leveling off dirt in a new 4-lane, the yellow machines belching brown smoke into a crystal blue sky. Daddy turned off the highway at the shot-out McHugh sign, then drove down a narrow 2-lane McAdam road through a stand of thick oaks that gave way to more rolling farmland. He had almost fallen asleep by the time the car wheeled into the deep gravel of the road that led to Aunt Mabel's. He sat up and listened to the throaty sound of the gravel against the undercarriage of the car, glad it was drowning out the music on the radio. Daddy stopped the car in the grass in front of the Jim Walker home where Aunt Mabel lived. Sam squinted through the bug-smeared windshield. Fragments of yellow paint lay like crushed eggshells around the edges of the house, in the groove pounded out by the rains that sluiced from the gutterless roof. A white porch, now faded to gray, clung to the front of the house, the bowed floorboards making a crooked smile on a tired face. Sam climbed out and walked around to the trunk. The rusty screen door snapped open and Aunt Mabel stepped out onto the porch, her thin eyebrows raised with her blue eyes narrowed in the glare. Her blonde hair was cut close and hung around her face like Tanya Tucker's. She wore tight jeans and a sleeveless white shirt, and Sam always thought she was pretty. His daddy always said she had a big ass. Well, hello, Winston. Howdy, Mabel. We gonna go fishing. Mabel stared at him for a moment, then cut her eyes over at Sam. Hi, Aunt Mabel, he said. He waved. She waved back. Hi, sweetie. Then back at Winston. Didn't know you was coming. You should have called. Thanks.